Why do people suddenly start chasing you the moment you stop pursuing them? It's a question you've likely pondered more than once. There are moments in life when we feel overlooked, rejected, or underappreciated, often by those we care about the most. And yet, something unusual occurs when we choose to step back. Based on his studies of the unconscious mind and the nature of human relationships, this pattern is far from random. It's not a game. It's the result of psychological dynamics that influence both our actions and those of others, often without us even realizing it. Almost like clockwork, the person who once ignored us begins to reach out, express interest, and act as though they've always valued us. In relationships, this often takes the form of closeness versus distance, desire versus accessibility. When someone senses you're too available, their unconscious begins to file you under secure, and as a result, their interest tends to wane. It's not a deliberate choice, rather. The unconscious responds to over-availability by reducing attraction. When you chase someone, they may begin to unconsciously believe that your value is tied to their validation, that you need them to feel whole. Instead, you become someone with emotional autonomy, someone with options, someone whose sense of worth is not reliant on anyone's approval. That shift is magnetic. But when you step back, when you stop centering them in your emotional world, that projection shifts. When someone feels they have total influence over you, the element of mystery fades. But when you become unpredictable, when your energy shifts away from them, they re-engage. That renewed interest? It's the psyche's attempt to recapture what it fears it may lose. But why does this happen? Is it mere coincidence, or is there a deeper psychological mechanism at work? Think back to times when you invested heavily in a friendship, a family bond, or a professional relationship only to be met with indifference. Maybe they reached out. Maybe they checked in. Maybe they came back, only for a while. That wasn't coincidence. It was a shift in psychological perception, an unconscious recalibration of how they viewed your value. What happened when you stopped trying so hard? When you stopped initiating? When you finally let go? The other person experiences a subtle but powerful fear, the fear of loss. And fear of loss is one of the most potent motivators in human psychology. When you chase others for emotional validation, it often reflects a gap in your inner development. It's not a tactic. The transformation has to be real. It's about genuinely becoming someone who doesn't need to chase, someone who is emotionally grounded. You're unconsciously placing your self-worth in someone else's hands. More importantly, you free yourself. Free yourself from anxiety, attachment, and the constant need for affirmation. You begin moving through life with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own value, someone no longer ruled by the fear of being left behind. In essence, you're saying, I need you to feel complete. You stop trying to be gotten and instead start being someone who is already enough. You move from needing validation to radiating self-worth, and that kind of confidence doesn't go unnoticed. Often, we don't fully realize the value of something until it's no longer within easy reach. You transform from the pursuer to the pursued. You're no longer emotionally dependent, no longer projecting lack. You begin to embody completeness, confidence, and calm, and others are naturally drawn to that. Carl Jung, one of the most influential figures in modern psychology, offers an explanation that goes far beyond surface-level emotional behavior. To understand this, we must start with a core idea. Human desire is driven by perceived value and psychological focus. When you chase someone, remain constantly available and make it clear, whether through words or actions, that you're willing to give without requiring anything in return. You're essentially signaling that your presence is guaranteed. And unfortunately, the mind often undervalues what it perceives as always accessible. Jung believed that life is governed by the tension between opposites. But the moment you step away, stop texting, stop waiting, stop chasing, something shifts. This dynamic isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding how the mind operates beneath the surface. Jung spoke frequently about projection, how we assign our inner fears, desires, and insecurities onto others. You're no longer the one who needs to be chosen. True desire isn't sustained by constant presence. It's reignited by genuine absence, not in a strategic or calculated way, but through authentic self-assurance. Jung also believed that the human psyche is constantly striving for wholeness, seeking to integrate all aspects of itself. This is closely tied to Jung's concept of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. But when you reclaim your energy, when you stop trying to draw fulfillment from others, and instead cultivate it from within, something profound happens. And this doesn't apply only to romantic relationships. Chances are, the other person noticed. But here's what matters most. This isn't about pretending to walk away in order to get someone to return. When you reach that place when your self-worth no longer hinges on external approval, you start attracting the right people into your life. More importantly, you free yourself. Free yourself from anxiety, attachment, and the constant need for affirmation. You begin moving through life with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own. Value someone no longer ruled by the fear of being left behind. As Jung once said, what we fear most is usually what we need to face. So if your instinct is to chase, to cling, to hold on, don't shame that urge. Instead, use it as a signpost. Ask yourself the deeper questions. Why does my worth feel conditional? What inner void am I trying to fill? What am I avoiding within myself? Because here's the truth. When you begin to genuinely value yourself fully, unapologetically, everything changes. You stop operating from need and start living from a place of abundance. You no longer try to be enough for others. You realize you are always enough for you. You become someone with direction, with stability, someone whose life doesn't orbit around being selected by others. And people sense that. They see it in your posture, your words, your choices. Not with others, but with yourself. Not because you're manipulating them, but because you've learned how to stand complete in your own presence. Carl Jung frequently pointed out that the human psyche constantly seeks equilibrium. One of the deepest imbalances we experience is the fear of abandonment. When you're chasing someone, you're often reacting to that fear sometimes without realizing it. You may feel that unless you stay visible, remain attentive, or continually prove your worth, the person will leave. That's the kind of person others naturally gravitate toward. When fear drives your behavior, you become predictable. And predictability by nature can dull interest. Suddenly, you're not chasing a reply or craving attention. That's why, when someone senses you're no longer fully available, they may become more drawn to you. People pick up on that, even when it's not spoken. It's felt. That's why the most powerful step isn't a step back, it's a tactic. It's the step back. If you're always trying to prove your worth or gain acceptance, chances are there's an unresolved issue around self-worth. The liberating truth is you don't need to prove anything, because you realize your sense of wholeness doesn't rely on anyone else. But this only holds true when your shift is authentic, when it comes from a genuine change in how you see yourself. You've become someone who values themselves too much to seek external approval. The mind responds strongly to this. It's about finding equilibrium existing in a space where your value is not contingent on someone else's validation. The real way to stop the cycle of pursuit isn't just to retreat, it's to reflect. Ask yourself, why do I feel compelled to chase? Why do I struggle to let things unfold naturally? You begin to live with a kind of inner peace that others can't help but notice. Real connection doesn't grow from pursuit, it comes from authenticity. When you stop forcing connection and redirect your energy toward personal growth, you begin to draw in relationships that are truly aligned with you. Jung illustrated this through the concept of the shadow, those hidden, often denied parts of ourselves that subtly shape our actions. The human mind tends to disengage from what is always readily available. Jung taught that true freedom isn't found in trying to control others. It lies in freeing ourselves from the desire to do so. So next time you feel the urge to chase to pursue someone in hopes of being seen, appreciated, or loved, pause. Ask yourself, what am I truly seeking? Am I moving from trust or from fear? Wounds that may have formed in childhood or past relationships, where we learned mistakenly that love must be earned, affection must be fought for, and our worth depends on someone else's validation. But that's not reality. That's a belief formed from pain. When you start to trust in your inherent worth, when you no longer feel the need to pursue others to prove it, you unlock something powerful, the realization that you are already enough. That's when the chase ends and real connection begins. Because when people notice you after you've walked away, it's not a trick. It's not manipulation. It's psychology. They draw people in not through effort or intention, but through alignment with your true self. It's because you've started to reflect something far more compelling than charm or tactics: authenticity, self-assurance, and genuine self-respect. These qualities carry their own quiet power. When you stop chasing, it doesn't just shift how others perceive you, it reshapes how you perceive yourself. But that's an illusion, a subconscious trap that builds emotional dependency rather than reinforcing a strong sense of identity. This doesn't mean you should play games or become emotionally distant. If your shadow carries a deep need for approval or a strong fear of rejection, that emotional tone will come through no matter how composed you appear. Often, the urge comes from old emotional wounds, sometimes ones we're not fully aware of. When you begin to heal, your vision becomes clearer. And here's what often happens next. The people who once overlooked or undervalued you start to notice a change. Jung referred to the concept of compensation. When something becomes less accessible, the psyche compensates by increasing desire. If you pull back only in the hope that someone will chase you, but you're still driven by need beneath the surface, that energy will show. When you gain that inner clarity, the desire to chase fades on its own. You stop overthinking. You stop trying to control outcomes. Jung once said that what we repress ends up controlling us. If you're always trying to prove your worth or gain acceptance, chances are there's an unresolved issue around self-worth. The liberating truth is you don't need to prove anything. And once you truly believe that, your energy shifts quietly, but powerfully. Your worth isn't defined by the number of people who want you, the relationships you have, or how much attention you receive. Your worth is innate. And paradoxically, that's when people begin to think of you more. You're no longer investing in people who don't give back. You're becoming someone grounded, with direction and identity independent of others' approval. And that has real power. Because your absence creates space, and that space allows curiosity and reflection to emerge. It's the journey toward personal fulfillment. And a major part of that journey is realizing that you don't need validation to feel whole. And most importantly, you no longer need them to, because you've already found what you were looking for, a deep, lasting connection to yourself. It's the moment you reclaim your energy and realize that what you were seeking outside was always within you. Relationships become clearer. They stop being a reflection of your insecurities and start becoming mirrors of your growth. Carl Jung once noted that what unsettles us most in others often reflects something unresolved within ourselves. Every time you seek someone's attention, love, or approval, you may unknowingly give away your power. The harder you try to be validated, the less appealing you seem. Jung emphasized the importance of embracing the shadow, the unseen, often uncomfortable parts of ourselves. In this case, that shadow might include your fear of being left behind or of not mattering to someone you care about. You let someone else define your worth, deciding when you matter and when you don't. This leads to a reactive way of living, always on alert, waiting for a message, a gesture, any sign that you're being acknowledged. When you feel ignored, unappreciated, or undervalued by someone, it's a prompt to look inward and ask, in what ways am I overlooking myself? It's tied to older experiences. Perhaps you once believed love had to be earned, that affection was conditional, and that if you didn't constantly prove your worth, you'd be forgotten. These ideas can solidify into patterns, and over time, those patterns become limiting. Where in my life am I settling? Why am I accepting less than I deserve? And from that place, love starts to find you, not because you ask for it, but because you become someone who naturally attracts it. You no longer feel compelled to stay present in someone's mind. You stop reaching out just to maintain relevance. This is why letting go can make you more attractive, not as a tactic, but as a natural result of reclaiming your energy. Do I need others to affirm my worth? Until you can answer those questions honestly, you'll likely keep repeating old patterns, pursuing those who were never meant to stay. Jung described individuation as the path of becoming your truest self. We often cling to people who don't value us, believing that losing them means losing a part of ourselves. But the truth is, you never lose what's truly aligned with you. If someone is meant to stay, they will without you needing to chase. And if they leave when you stop trying, it means the connection was held together by effort, not by authenticity. So ask yourself, how emotionally free am I? Does my sense of peace depend on being noticed? The day you stop chasing is the day your real life begins. That's when others begin to seek you not for what you say or do, but for the quiet confidence and authenticity you embody. The urge to chase was never really about love. It was rooted in a fear of emptiness. But once you see that, everything begins to change. But now, you begin to see yourself clearly whole, worthy, and enough. The truth is, no one can make you feel insignificant without your internal agreement. And here lies the paradox. The more urgently you want to be seen, the less visible you become. But often, this hunger for validation doesn't come from what's happening now. It's tied to older experiences. Perhaps you once believed love had to be earned, that affection was conditional, and that if you didn't constantly prove your worth, you'd be forgotten. These ideas can solidify into patterns, and over time, those patterns become limiting. But here's the good news. You're not stuck. You can break free when you stop measuring your worth by someone else's presence or absence. People naturally gravitate toward those who aren't desperate to be seen, those who are at ease with themselves, who carry a quiet confidence. You stop accepting minimal effort. You stop searching for proof that someone cares. You no longer settle for lukewarm attention because you've come to know your worth. And once you know it, others begin to recognize it too. It means you start valuing your own time and energy enough to be more intentional about how and where you share them. When you stop chasing and no longer feel the need to prove your value, you naturally attract those who already see it, people who don't need to be convinced. But ask yourself, do you really want to be with someone who only values you when they sense you might leave? If that's the case, what you're after isn't love, it's reassurance. And reassurance is never enough. No matter how much you get, it won't fill that internal gap. Healing starts when you stop acting from lack and begin to live from inner strength. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You are the one making choices. You're no longer settling. You're setting clear boundaries. That's the difference between a mindset of lack and one of self-respect. And once that shift happens, something interesting follows. People don't notice you more because you've disappeared. They're drawn to you because your energy has changed. You become someone with direction, someone whose life no longer revolves around gaining approval. That shift is compelling. But when your confidence comes from within, that cycle stops. It's a moment to pause and ask, why am I allowing this? What makes me think I have to settle for less than I deserve? When you answer those questions honestly, you see the truth. It was never about the other person. It's always been about how you see and value yourself. Jung said the highest form of self-love is to stop searching outside for what can only be found within. This is where many people get it wrong. They think that stopping the chase means pulling away, being silent, or hoping the other person notices what they've lost. If someone feels they can access your time and energy freely without ever earning it, their mind starts to undervalue it. Not out of malice, but because that's how desire works. It thrives on uncertainty, on something that needs to be earned, not constantly available. But if underneath that silence, you're still worried about being noticed still, hoping they'll return, then nothing has changed. You're still caught in the cycle. Only now, you're waiting instead of chasing. True transformation doesn't happen when someone misses you. It happens when you realize you don't need them to. Think about it. When someone genuinely values you, they don't need constant reminders. You don't have to prove yourself over and over. You're not stressing over response times or trying to interpret vague signals. Real connection flows without force. When you understand this, your whole mindset around relationships shifts. Jung believed the unconscious mind is always looking to restore balance. This doesn't mean you become distant or cold. And this isn't about using reverse psychology or playing games. It's about a deep shift in your internal state. One of the biggest misconceptions is thinking that pulling back will make someone value you more. If you keep looking for validation, you'll end up in a cycle of anxiety, always needing more proof that you matter. So, if you're feeling ignored or sidelined, it's not a sign to try harder. It's a moment to pause and ask, why am I allowing this? What makes me think I have to settle for less than I deserve? When you answer those questions honestly, you see the truth. It was never about the other person. It's always been about how you see and value yourself. And the real shift doesn't happen when they change. It happens when you do. You stop being someone who waits and worries and become someone who acts with clarity and confidence. That's when the real transformation occurs. Once you understand you don't need to run after anyone to be valued, something powerful shifts. You're no longer anxious in silence. You stop wasting energy trying to be seen. But here's the important part. You don't step into this mindset to win someone back. You do it because you finally realize that the person you needed to reconnect with was yourself. You come to understand a basic truth. Relationships based on lack will always drain you. Because when you stop searching outside for something that already lives within you, things begin to align naturally. You begin attracting what you once hoped for, but this time, from a place of self-respect, not need. That's the most powerful move you can make. Because once you fully believe that your worth doesn't rely on pursuit or external approval, your entire approach changes. If you're filled with despair, you'll attract relationships that echo that same despair. If you're gripped by the fear of losing someone, you'll likely end up in situations where that fear becomes real. But if what you carry inside is peace, confidence, and a strong sense of identity, the world around you will start to reflect that. The right people will enter your life. Real connections will grow deeper. And most importantly, you'll stop settling for less than you deserve. But relationships built on abundance will always uplift you. And that abundance starts from within. Not because you're trying to manipulate outcomes, but because your energy has shifted. Leave a comment below and share what part made you pause and reflect. Every time you interact, every time you share, you're helping others discover this message too. Tap the notification bell so you never miss future videos. Because here, we go beyond surface-level talk about relationships. We focus on deep personal growth and creating lasting change from within. You're no longer seeking approval. You're not trying to convince anyone of your value. You're not pleading for love. You simply are. Carl Jung believed that our unconscious mind reflects our inner world. When you stop chasing and start honoring your self-worth, when you realize it isn't up for debate, others begin to view you differently. Every video is made to help you awaken, rediscover your strength, and move toward a life built on clarity and purpose. And in that state of being grounded and real, you begin to hold a quiet power. This isn't about mind games or tactics. It's about genuine transformation. Right now, ask yourself this. What would shift if you fully believed in your worth? How would your relationships change if you no longer felt the urge to pursue anyone? How would your view of the world evolve if you stopped waiting for validation and started living from your true self? The answers to these questions could reshape your life. They could mark the shift from being stuck in emotional neediness to creating connections built on mutual respect and stability. That transformation starts now with a choice. The choice to let go. The choice to trust. The choice to put yourself first. If this message spoke to you, consider sharing it with someone who might need it too. Together, we can reach more people, especially those who still feel stuck in cycles of emotional dependence. Those who need a reminder that their worth isn't defined by anyone else. Be part of this community. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you're ready to keep growing, explore the rest of this channel. Remember, this is your moment to shift. Choose your value. Choose your peace. And most importantly, choose to live as your most authentic self.